テレ東BIZ
On the war in Ukraine, the US has imposed economic sanctions against Russia and continues to provide security assistance to Ukraine. Do you think Russia's invasion of Ukraine has changed China's calculation on Taiwan?
I don't know, but I hope so. I hope Xi Jinping is sitting in Beijing and asking himself, what reasoning did Vladimir Putin go through that would prompt him to invade Ukraine, and why did he get it so wrong? Get it so wrong in terms of the Ukrainians' resistance, their will, their grit, their capability, and I would say, how did he get it wrong in terms of the incompetence of his own military? So I assume that Xi Jinping is probably asking those same questions of China, of the Chinese military, and of Taiwan. And I think those things will factor into Xi Jinping's calculations, which is why I think that there are also lessons learned here for Taipei. And that's why when I was in Taiwan, I conveyed to the leadership that they need to do a number of things. You and I just discussed them: increase their defense budget, adopt an asymmetric warfare approach and get associated capabilities. They need to extend and toughen their conscription, revitalize remobilization, and they need to start stockpiling energy and food, ammunitions, equipment, all those things that are important to sustaining deterring a sustained Chinese assault.
What do you think about the possibility of a Chinese invasion of Taiwan?
Well, we always kind of default to a Chinese invasion of Taiwan, some type of amphibious assault. But if it comes, that may not be the way they do it. It could be a blockade. It could be missile barrages. It could be cyber attacks. It could come in any way, shape, or form. Now, how imminent is that? It doesn't appear imminent to me right now. Clearly, the Chinese have a party Congress coming up in November. Xi Jinping will likely get an unprecedented third term. Then there's an expectation of a leadership reshuffle that will extend into the spring. So I think at the earliest something could or could not happen would be, the spring timeframe. But again, there's nothing out there that I see that would really compel the Chinese or provoke the Chinese to act. I think we have some time, but really only Xi Jinping knows. He's the only person that knows right now.
President Biden recently said the military doesn't think the trip is a good idea, and China is strongly opposing her visit to Taiwan. Do you think she should go?
I think if she wants to go, she should go. The travel schedules of American officials should not be dictated by the Chinese Communist Party. I think it's important that our lawmakers go. She would not be the first Speaker of the House to go to Taipei, and members of Congress every year go to Taipei and visit with our partners in Taiwan. So it's important for, I think, our elected officials to go out to visit countries, friends, allies, make their own assessments of the situation. It helps them do their jobs better back in Washington, D.C. So if she wants to go, I think she should go.
The Chinese government has made serious threats, and there are concerns that a visit to Taiwan by Speaker Pelosi trigger an escalation in U.S.-China relations. Do you think these threats should be taken seriously? And what do you think about the risk of an expected conflict?
Well, look, I think we always want to take seriously what people are saying, but Beijing expresses outrage over these things all the time. It's hard to sort what's real and what's not real from their language and from their rhetoric. And so I think we should continue to do what we do. We should continue to defend international laws and rules and norms. We should continue to support our allies and partners. And we shouldn't back down to this heated rhetoric coming out of Beijing. I mean, again, look, Tokyo faces the same problem with the Chinese maritime militia in the East China Sea, circling the Senkakus and other islands. And you have Russia down there now as well, sailing around the island. So we are now in a 21st century that's seeing a face-off between the democracies of the world and the autocracies of the world. And the autocracies are led by Moscow and Beijing. And the democracies, I think, are led by, Washington, our European allies, and of course, the leading capitals in Asia. Tokyo, of course, is one of them. And I think we need to stand firm and defend the international system that is built around the values that we all share.
The issues surrounding Taiwan are growing concern in Japan, which has close economic ties to China. But how should Japan deal with an increasingly authoritarian China? And do you have a piece of advice to current Japanese leadership?
Well, first of all, I want to express my condolences to your audience and specifically the family of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and the Japanese people. I mean, he was a great leader, a visionary leader. He gave us the terminology of a free and open Indo-Pacific, and I think he was taking Japan in the right direction with regard to having a greater leadership role in the world and standing up to authoritarian China. And we will miss his leadership, but it's good to see that the current government seems to be carrying along that trend. Look, Japan is a great country. It's a high-tech country, the world's third largest economy. You share the same values of democracy and liberty and freedom that we all do. And I think there is a role, not just a role, but a need for Japan on the world stage to help us stand up against authoritarian China, particularly since you're so close to, geographically so close, and China threatens your core interest as well. I've mentioned a couple of times Senkakus, but of course we know they want to control all maritime traffic in the South China Sea and the East China Sea and elsewhere. That would be very, very detrimental to Japan's trade economy and economy in general.
Secretary, you recently said in a Brookings event that if China invaded Taiwan, it's inevitable that Japan would get drawn into the fight. Do you mean militarily? Could you elaborate on that?
Well, certainly if there's a fight between Taiwan and China and the United States supports Taiwan militarily, our supply lines and everything else stretch back into Korea and Japan. So there's that piece of it. Could it get involved militarily? I don't know. It depends on how expansive China's aggression is. Again, is it a military invasion, an amphibious invasion, or is it a blockade? And once these types of things start, you never know where they go, where they will spiral into or expand into. So my assumption is that neighboring countries get drawn into this conflict. And, Japan is clearly a neighbor of both Taiwan and China. So there is an inevitability to that. But again, what China is threatening with regard to Taiwan are some of the same things it's threatening with regard to Japan. We need to all be alert to that. And that's why I think the important thing is to deter a conflict in the first place. And the way we deter conflict is by Taiwan improving its defenses, but Taiwan and China also seeing that the democracies of the world, in this case, particularly in Asia, so it would be, Japan, Korea, Australia, and others, standing up to and willing to support Taiwan.
最後まで見ていただきましてありがとうございます。テレビ東京の経済ニュース、経済番組をもっと見たいという方はこちらの画像をクリックしまして動画配信サービステレ東ビズにアクセスしてください。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。